Again for joining us. We're going to go ahead and start our recording, and I'm so honored and excited to pass it over to our panel moderator, Tama. Tama is a TechGirls alumna, and she is going to be taking over this discussion and connecting with our speakers who are tech women mentors from Silicon Valley. So with that, I will say thank you again for joining, and huge thank you, Tama, for moderating. I'll go ahead and hand it to you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And it's such an honor and a pride to be here moderating with such amazing, powerful women on this board. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. I can just add that I'm also very passionate about impact and working in intersections, as many of our panelists are. So I'll hand it off to our panelists and to have a little introduction, starting with Anwar, the first on my screen.
Hello, everybody. I'm Annar Simpson. I'm based in Silicon Valley, and my work for the past 10 years has been around the intersection of women, girls, and technology. I work at sort of 3 levels in that area. At the grassroots level, I've been the global ambassador for Technovation, and this program teaches young girls between the ages of 10 to 18 not only technical skills of how to develop an app for a mobile phone, but it also wraps around that curriculum entrepreneurship skills, how to start a business, how to identify a product, how to bring it to market, how to gain customers, how to grow it, how to become successful. So what we've seen is when we teach girls at a very young age these concepts, it carries them through their entire sort of beginnings of careers and makes a difference into which path they choose as they enter the workforce. And I'm happy to say that a lot of them, I think over 70%, end up in STEM fields. So, you know, Technovation girls, good program for you to check out. At the middle level, I'm included in the Tech Women organization. This is the parallel program that the US State Department has, parallel to TechGirls. It's called Tech Women. And in that program, it's very similar. They bring women from over 20 countries to Silicon Valley for a 3-week mentorship where they are paired with mentors in professional companies, but they also get, to understand the culture of Silicon Valley. And then, they go at the last week to Washington and understand the policy aspect of it. So my role there has been a strategic partnerships advisor where, I'm happy to, first of all, grow the program, initially to Sub-Saharan Africa, etc. But then also to help the cohorts when they come here and the mentors to, special events within companies, but also to events in Washington, etc. And then at the policy level, I work with the UN high-level panel to see what kind of things could be put in place by governments and countries about women's digital inclusion. Because when you include women digitally, you're really including them in the economy. And so we were looking at that. And that's me.
That's amazing. And we will tap into some of your experiences later on with questions as well. I have Cassiani next.
Hey, everyone. I'm Cassiani. My pronouns are she, her. As you can see at the bottom there, my Twitter handle is @uncoileddragon. Please feel free to reach out to me. I work as a senior security engineer at Twitter as of right now. And I'm also the tech lead for the incident response team. And that's what I do and have done for the past 2 years. Before that, I actually worked in antivirus software up in Canada, and I'm currently based out of New York, working from the Twitter office there. So I work in incident response. That's my primary field. I love leadership. I love being able to make an impact. And this is really a field that's part of security where you can do that. I work with a wide range of customers every day, all from our internal teams, because we're an embedded incident response team. And there's a lot of people working on the Twitter platform to make you safe. There's our trust and safety team, our policy enforcement and election integrity teams, legal teams, account security, application security. And then if all of them have not managed to stop bad things from happening on the platform, I am the last ditch effort. I am incident response. I also have a great passion for helping women and girls further themselves in the STEM fields, including them in it, and most of all, keeping them in it once they've joined, because as we all know, it's not a problem of interest, it's a problem of retention. So I went as a Tech Woman Professional Mentor in 2021, which was an amazing experience, even though it was virtual, and I'm hoping to join the program again in later years. And I also have a passion for preventing climate change, which is something I do working on the green team at Twitter as a very much a side project, because, you know, my day job gets in the way. But yeah, I think probably the most important thing about today is going to be all of you and listening to what you have to say and your questions. And I am so excited for this panel and for hearing what you have to say. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Again, lots of also amazing intersections and areas that we can tap into. And I'll head to Sunita.
Right. Hi, I guess good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So first of all, thank you so much for having me to join this important conversation. So I think a lot of the tech girls and tech women are not from the US. So I'm also originally from Jakarta, Indonesia. I came to the US about 30 years ago, actually to go to college, to university, and didn't plan to stay this long, but as they said, you may have a plan, but life usually have another plan for you. From an educational perspective, I have both engineering and also business degree. So now kind of like looking back past 25 years, after school, I would say my experiences, have been really at the intersection of innovation, disruptive technologies. I've been involved with IoT, with renewables, energy and batteries, and also the last one was with 3D printing, digital manufacturing. So, these are new disruptive technologies that usually when there is a new disruptive technology, it enables new business model and some kind of transformation. So that has been my experience. And I think that combination of engineering and business degree enabled me to be able to do a lot of things, including strategy, go-to-market, usually new solutions, introduction and business models. And I've done this both with new businesses within large global Fortune 100 companies like HP or Siemens, but also with smaller, more entrepreneurial venture-backed Silicon Valley startups. And recently, actually not quite recent, maybe about 2 years ago, I also joined, I'm also a board director at 2 public companies here in the US. One is Sunrun, who is the largest actually consumer solar and battery company in the United States. And the second one is TrueBlue, who is a mission-driven workforce solution company that actually the past 3 years have connected about 3 million people to work. So, very mission-driven. And very recently, I actually left my operating executive role to focus full-time on board service and also doing my own advising and investing in innovation and technology. And throughout my career, I would say I have been also passionate about increasing more women in tech, more women in leadership, especially C-suite and corporate boardrooms. And I was involved with the Tech Women programs. I would say in the beginning of the program, I was a mentor and for a few years also part of the selection committee, maybe around 2012, 2015 timeframe. So very good to be here with all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And your international background, I think lots of tech girls can relate to you and your experience. So it's really amazing to have you here as well. And now we're headed to Sandra.
Thank you, and that's a nice segue. into my introduction as well. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. So my background actually arises from mechanical engineering and now more focused in supply chain. Currently, I am leading our supply chain management efforts over at Square Inc. or Block Inc. now, as we evolved on our payment terminals and payment devices. So throughout my career, my theme and my thread has been in product development on the hardware side. So in my past life, I started out on the technical side, leveraging my mechanical experience background as a manufacturing engineer over at Apple, working on their iPhones, and then as an operations program manager over at Fitbit, working on their Fitbit health devices. And then towards the intersection of my career, working at data hardware servers over at Facebook on supply chain management as well. And then a little bit more about how those intertwine and weave in terms of the theme of impact and how a product can be quite powerful there. Beyond the professional side of things, I did notice also not only in the workforce, but also outside of work as well, very little representation as you evolve and, go through various different companies and go up in the ladder in terms of leadership. And so definitely I was always looking for allies and role models, and they don't have to look like you. A lot of my allies and role models have been folks that didn't even understand manufacturing or product development or supply chain. So reaching out there. Outside of my core focus in terms of my career, I've been involved with Tech Women since 2017 in all capacities, from impact coach, professional mentor, selection committee. I've been coaching fellows from Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Kenya, and this year Cameroon. So very much enjoyed the conversations and understanding the challenges and how we can provide all the different tools and skills and level up for our fellows there. And then lastly, I am based here in San Francisco.
This is great. And I particularly love how in all of your work, so much impact is going on. Okay, I think Raj just joined just at the right time. Would you like to give us a little introduction before we go into general questions?
Sure, absolutely. And I'm sorry, I'm a few minutes late. When you have two daughters, this is what happens. You have all morning. I'm in Pacific, so I'm really sorry. Let me give a quick introduction about myself. Other than being a dad of two daughters, two beautiful daughters, and we celebrated one's birthday yesterday. I'm in technology field, so I'm involved with a couple of startups. I work in a startup as my regular job, but I'm also involved with a startup as a mentor in their early journey. And I've been in industry for about 15 to 20 years. I've seen it all. I've seen all the way from .com boom when it was, in fact, one can argue today's world is similar to a .com boom. Today's tech industry, tech scene is somewhat similar to that. But yeah, that's my story. And I'm an immigrant. I'm originally from India. So I also have had that perspective, which also makes me want to come to Tech Women Forum, because you get to interact with a lot of folks who are not local to America.
Amazing. Okay, let's start with a general question, which is, you guys have all worked in different fields where particularly there is a leaky pipeline. So there are lots of females are interested in that field. Lots of females are studying it, but not so many females are practicing it. Can you tell me a little bit how maybe impact intertwines with this leaky pipeline and how to fix it? How can you, as role models, create more impact and more, more space for more females to join you on boards and in your mission? Feel free to just to hop in.
Taima, okay, I have a question about you, about the, not a question, sorry, a comment about that. Leaky pipelines, so from my experience, it's actually both, because when we talk about pipeline, we're only talking about the supply side, but it's actually supply and demand. So from my experience, I think to increase, more women in tech, I think it has to be both, So from the pipeline perspective, we need to encourage, girls to study math and science from a young
Yes.
age. Annar mentioned about that. I think not too long ago, I actually read like a study by the Society of Women Engineers that said like in grade school, about 60% of boys said their favorite subject was math and science, but only 40% of girls. So my point is, from a very young age, teachers, parents, everyone, we had to encourage more girls to go into math and science, right? And then the second, I think women also need role models, but the role models have to be both, not just the aspirational, sure, those aspirational role models are good for you to aspire, but also they need role models who are just 1 to 2 steps ahead of them, because it is more, the advice and kind of like the things that they will talk about is a little bit more relevant, right? Because let's say if you're an undergraduate in engineering, female in college, sure, you can think about the Nobel Prize winners or the C-suite, but that's not where you're going to go next. Most likely, you're going to either go to graduate school or be like a young professional at the company. So I think from a model perspective, they need both. On the demand side, from companies' perspectives, I think companies actually need to stop the, the companies need to be much more serious about actually being very intentional about recruiting, and after they recruit, actually helping these women to stay, to thrive, in order to move up the ladder. So I guess that's my perspective.
This is great, and I think it sounds like we need interventions that are much earlier than, let's say, career or college degree, and we need mentors like you're all doing. So, any comments on that? Anything that you and your experience, your aha moment in that field?
I'm sure.
Yeah, I can jump in. So this is a really dear to my heart topic, because I had a really hard time staying in the field, and I thought I might actually leave until I came to this job at Twitter and loved it, because honestly, because my boss had created a space that was safe for women to be in. So just to add to the prior question, I now work as the incident response tech lead, and our team has more women than men on it. And it's not because we purposely try to hire women, it's because the women that are getting hired here see that it is a safe space and that they want to stay there. And I'm enormously proud of that. So we need to create spaces that are safe for women to come and do their best job without facing a toxic work environment, because that has been the thing that made me love tech and has helped me out. Aha moments. So one of them would be, being able to have a team that's so diverse and that adds so much perspective to our job. Another one was actually the Twitter hack in July of 2020, which I don't talk about a lot. I was the incident responder on call for that, and that was my first major incident. And I think it was very visible, everyone could see it, and my boss sponsored me to do my best work and didn't do it for me. So in that moment, I think I gained the confidence of leadership and of being an incident responder, and realized that I could do this because I had so much put on me at once, and so much expectation, and a team that supported me. And being the security side, if you're talking about creating safe spaces, you need to do that in security. That is what it's for. We create safety. And being able to do that in real time for so many customers and so many Twitter employees who had the social engineering hack against them, it was incredible. And it just led me to really believe that I could do this job and I could be in tech. So that was my aha.
This is amazing, and I think as tech girls, this is something that we had to learn the hard way, most of us. So You saying that in front of many tech girls, I think is a great way to at least prepare for it. I would like to go to Anwar and maybe go back to you with further questions about what the safe space is.
Sure. So just my 2 bits on this leaky pipeline. I mean, I agree completely with Sunita about the demand and supply. And then, I mean, if Cassian is telling you this about what's happening today in the workforce, it gives us a real perspective, right? We're in 2022, and she's still saying that she came to a workplace which she found safe. You would have thought by 2022, all workplaces, especially in tech, would be like that, but they're not. And there's a lot going on in there, right? You can't change culture overnight. There has to be a will from the very top to make sure that the culture is open and inclusive. And that takes a long time. And it is, people talk about intentional, but if it isn't, if it isn't one of your goals at the very top, right, that says that is what we're going to do, it can't happen. So I'm really glad that the 2 people before me have had, good experiences with this coming out. But I have to tell you that we have a long ways to go. And for all the girls who are listening out there, that just means that the world knows that we have to be more inclusive, that your voices, especially in tech, are needed and wanted, but that you might want to really be aware that people are trying to work to make it more equitable, but it's not there completely. So just realizing that and knowing that there are pockets of groups in companies, of people in companies that will help you. They're there, that they never used to be there, but they're there now. Give yourself that they've got those pockets, they've got that maybe will to do it. And then hopefully as time goes on, we won't even have this in a conversation about tech.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think just one more thing to add on that topic, as young females getting out of university, we have this paradox of finding a job and securing a living and finding a safe space, which is most probably won't be available commonly in different countries, not just in the US. What advices can you give girls who are falling between that paradox, having that balance of finding an environment that's safe and you can grow upon, but also being a little bit realistic and securing a living, especially if you're a fresh graduate?
So I can actually jump in with this. I hope I'm not taking up too much time here.
No, please.
So I think that especially when you're first starting out, you really have to sometimes take jobs you don't want to do. And that's just a reality because you're trying to build your resume. You're trying to get to the next point in your career. And it's not always possible to find a safe space. But my advice is have a really good idea of where you want to go and what you want to do, and then take huge risks to get there, because once you're there, you can build off of that and make your resume better and get the next great job and make more money, and it's just gets much better from there. So push yourself, take risks to get where you want to go. And if you can't find a safe space at your work, join a community of women in your area, tech women, women around the globe, that even go to a ballet class and do something where there's a lot of other women in a very positive environment, and just have something where there are people who understand what you're going through and can back you up when it gets really hard. But take those risks, further your career, and eventually get to a place that serves you, where you can make good impact and feel good at your job. And I know that's not every job, but it is possible to find.
Thank you so much. Raj, would you like to tell us a little bit about your aha moment?
Sure, yeah. And I would actually go back to what Annar said. 2022, if women have to find safe places, something is wrong. We should not have to ask, what are the safe places I could go to? We should ask, there should be no unsafe place. We should look for something else, which is there any unsafe place, and let's find it, kill it. But again, with that said, I would go back to my aha moment, and which was surreal, despite of having, let's say, being part of a tech mentor a few years ago. This actually happened about a month ago, where my daughter and I were chatting about something, and for whatever reason, she has good affinity towards Kamala Harris, who's the vice president. And somewhere she says, Daddy, can women be the president? And it came from nowhere. I was like, wait, what do you mean, honey? No, because, and then we spoke about all the presidents, and she knows about George Washington. She knows about Benjamin Franklin. She has read about the life stories books. And I'm like, yeah, of course there can be any women as a president. And this was a year when a lot of political debates were happening. And I did not realize the importance of mentors or women being in the leadership role so that they are visible. Because in my mind, going to the leaky pipeline also, I did not connect that well, that this causes the leaky pipeline. My daughter would have never seen herself as a politician if there is no women president in the country. So I really felt sad about the whole thing. I actually had to educate her enough about Indian history after that, because India happens to have a women prime minister. And I said, honey, prime minister is somewhat similar to a president, and India had a history, and here is the president or prime minister in India this many years ago. And I said, look, it's a matter of time. There was a time Hillary Clinton was running and whatnot, and I had to go through this. But that is what, I mean, until that moment, and like I said, it was literally a month ago, something to do with Kamala Harris, because she in her mind thought, oh, she can only be vice president and Joe Biden would always remain president. I was like, look, once Joe is gone, maybe Kamala would be the president. But that was my aha moment. And I think I cannot stress enough the importance of, and that's equally on men too, put women in a role of influence, put women in the role of impact where they're visible and then they're inspiring, because it's giving us way more value than in the moment. So I think we owe that to our future generations to promote women leadership in all possible places. So that was my aha moment, and I still am processing it. It's only a first daughter. I can imagine what my second daughter would come up with.
Oh, Thema, by the way, I want to just add like a practical advice, adding to what Annar and Cassian were saying about safe space. Of course, there's no guarantee you'll go into a safe space, because what you'll find is, even if the whole company is a company that's intentional about diversity and inclusion, it all depends on your, the group that you're with, right? Your boss, your teammates, and things like that. However, I would say there are ways that you can try to do a little bit due diligence as to whether this company is truly intentional about diversity and inclusion. And as Annar mentioned, it starts from the top. You can look at the company's annual report. What is the percentage of their boards who are women? HP, for instance, 56% actually of their board is women. And then also, what is the percentage of women in executive positions? Of course, there's no guarantee your group will be a safe space, but in a companies like that are intentional, it starts from the top, it sets the culture, you're more likely to find a safe space, because the company will not tolerate abuse or harassment.
Mm-hmm. This is very helpful. Thank you so much, Sunita. Sandra?
Yeah, I was also going to jump into Sunita's point to add on. Also on the practical level, when you're interviewing for these companies, usually they put representation on those panels, right, to diversify the candidacy and also to show you a holistic view of who you will be working for. So I would say even on the ground level, gathering that information is critical and also important. It goes both ways. And then kind of highlighting what Cassiana said, there will be times in your career, and especially in the beginning, where you may be making adjacent moves. You may not feel like you're moving forward, but these are adjacent moves that are important that may, level up your resume, right? Get you some initial first experience, or like, for example, if you're looking for internships, get you through the door on understanding, the workplace, right? And getting that piece, but then having that clear goal in mind of where you want to go next is important. And then I want to say lastly that, there will be times where you're stuck in a pickle right? You might be faced with adversity and challenges and setbacks, but you know at least what it looks like. So when I was graduating out of school, there are a lot of, I think, protection around when you're at a university versus a workplace level that you don't learn until, you reach that, internship experience or you're early on in your career. And it's, again, like difficult for kind of an academic environment to simulate it. You really need to experience it at full force when you're in a work environment. So experiencing the setbacks and challenges is one perspective to look at it. Now you know what it looks like to be, in positions that you don't want to be in, right? So then when you do transition over to, a safe space environment, you have that comparison and contrast. And so you know what it could be, but then also understand like the process or tools or skills, et cetera, that you could build up to grow more environments to be more of the safe space atmosphere.
Thank you so much, Sandra. So I'll move it to Annar and ask you, can you share a little bit about digital inclusion and how important it is for building a better, more impactful technologies?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so this is my bailiwick, right? If you don't include half the population in the product that you're building, how successful is that product going to be? Right? Basic question you can ask any corporate person, and it's possible that they would pay attention to that, right? I mean, without women's voices in the formation of mobile phones or any tech, kind of weird, right? Like, when you go to buy something today, you tend to look at where is it made? Is it made in the USA or Vietnam or Philippines, China, USA, Switzerland? You look, right? Where is it made? Well, what if they had a label that said, is it made equitably? Are they both men and women working on it? And if it said, oh no, made only by men, are you going to buy it? I don't know. It seems to me that if you're going to have products for the entire world, perhaps you should have a representation of the entire world in your product. And I think, at least in Silicon Valley, they're looking at that. They want diversity, right? They want different voices so that they can, it's in their interest, it's in their bottom line. Remember, companies have a bottom line. They have shareholders who are going to hold them accountable for that bottom line. So that's just how we live. We live in a capitalistic society, and corporations have to show profit and growth in order to continue. In that environment, can you be inclusive? Is it possible? And the good news is, of course you can. Because if you can show that by being inclusive and by including diversity, that your product will cater to more people and hence make a difference to your bottom line, then of course they're going to go for it, right? You think they would have done this from the very beginning, but they didn't. And we're seeing more and more of it. And the reason we're seeing more and more of it is that technology, right, is in everything from A to Z. You name it, and there's a tech component to it. And if that's the case, then there better be a tech component that's representative in everything. And I think people are understanding that more. And I think Twitter, both people mentioned this, but Twitter is one of those companies, right? It is a place that people will go to work at because that's what that company is. Their leader, right, Jack Dorsey, made it very obvious that that's what they want to do. And they're intentionally going about to do that. So I've heard really good things about Twitter. And on the scale of companies in Silicon Valley, you hear different things about different companies, right? But I think people are trying. I just want to give you one data point. It used to be, at least in the 90s, that companies would have one department called corporate social responsibility. And they expected that department to sort of take care of or whitewash, basically, everything else that they were doing, right? Now it looks like corporate social responsibility is embedded in the company. Everything they do, every division, it should be embedded. And if that's the direction we're going, then I think companies are looking in at it. But in the end, it's the bottom line, right? In the end, the thing that makes you money or that thing that will get you more growth or be better than your competitor is what the companies will listen to. They're not going to do it just because it's the good thing to do or the right thing to do. They're going to do it because it'll affect their businesses. And so if the businesses are trying to sell a product and the people buying the product are saying, hey, is this made by everybody and is this good? And then they'll continue to do it, but also the product. But I think for this group, for the Tech Girls audience, right? Keep that in mind. Every consumer has power. Every company sort of needs to show that they're inclusive. So keep that in mind as you go about your different forays into the tech world, right? And what you can bring to the table by being who you are and by bringing what you're bringing. Because your perspective cannot be bought. Your particular knowledge in that field or your way of looking at technology, right? You can bring it in your unique way and it's needed. And you just have to make sure that where you're going and who you're presenting it to is open to that. And that's how we can sort of go forward.
Thank you so much for that perspective, Annar. I'd like to go with Kassiani if you have any comments about this.
Yeah, having an impact in your work and where you want to go with it. First of all, I have a book recommendation for all of you, which is if you read Weapons of Math Destruction and you kind of, it's a great unpacking of like how machine learning and data science affects our daily world, certainly in the US, definitely in other countries as well. And I think we need more people in those fields, especially like as Annar was saying, we need a diverse group of people because that builds a lot of unconscious bias. And we want to have a community that is where we want to go and like the world we want to build instead of a world that reinforces the inequalities we already have. So I think that's probably the most important direction to go in. And I know Twitter struggles with that a lot, although thank you, Annar, for saying that we care about diversity, which we do, but there's definitely a lot of struggles with it. On a personal level, the impact that I want to have and the place that I kind of want to go with my career, I would like to actually go into management and tap more into the leadership side of my daily life. I'm hoping that I will be able to become the manager of the incident response team at Twitter. And if not, then in a few years, I may consider trying to move into a different management stream at Twitter because, I love it. It's a safe space for me. I'd like to continue to work there. And I'm actually just submitted an application to business school to be able to take that step in the fall. So that's where I'm going next, and a very exciting journey for me because I think that's kind of going to be my niche in the tech world is leadership, and it's very terrifying because it's difficult to do. It's difficult to speak. It's difficult to lead people, and it's difficult to think about the people side when I've just been concerned with the technical side for so long. If anyone would like to talk more about that or making that transition or just different interests in tech and how they stack up against engineering, I'd love to talk to you. Just shoot me a message on Twitter.
Can I jump in there? So,
yeah, of course.
Kassiani, you hit the nail on the head. And I think the message you're giving to these girls who are listening is exactly what they need to hear. Once you're in a job and you've mastered your job, like you have to do your job in any company the best you can, okay? The best there is. But once you've done that, you have to see if you can further yourself. Can you get more education? Can you go to, online? You can now do a lot of networking. Can you do that? Can you volunteer? How are you building yourself? While you're at your current job, how are you building and expanding yourself so that your trajectory is where you end up going to business school, right? As you're doing your job, look at Kassiani. So she's thinking of business school. She's doing a full-time job, which is in a stressful environment. Incident response is not easy. in any sense of the word. I'm shocked that she can sleep at night. But look, when she's looking at business school, you know, Sandra is volunteering at Tech Women. They've got full-time jobs that they're doing that. They're still in their careers, right? And so my advice is, you know, don't do everything at once, but once you're in your job and you're sort of, okay, I think I can do this. There are 24 hours in a day. Do things that'll help you as a whole person in your career, in your life, in your wisdom. And the more you do, don't stand still, right? The more you do, the better you'll understand within you where you want to go. Do you want to go into management? Do you want to do more technical stuff? Are you really sort of, you know, hooked to this idea that I can solve this? But you're young, right? You don't really know yourself yet. You're learning yourself. We all are, actually. And the more you do different things, volunteering, taking an extra course, you know, taking ballroom dancing, like different things expose you to different people and different networks. And the key in here is exposing yourself to different networks, right? Then you're opening your path bigger and then allows you to grow and grow.
And I think two more things that I'd like to highlight are, even if it's terrifying, just go for it, I think. And just talking about it with your peers, you can find that there are more terrifying people who are doing it, and you can all be terrified together. I think that's a very important thing that to learn. And I've personally came to conclusion after many trials and many jobs. And the other thing is that you're moving from working with computers and tech to working with people or understanding people, which I think is an underrated transition, because as STEM students and as tech girls, we often focus on the product, on tech. In programming, you are treated as a robot that will need to perform certain tasks and programs, which leads me to my other question, which is, what are the steps you can take in order to make an impact and think beyond the product while you are working with that product? And I'd like to direct it to Sandra, if you can answer that. How to look beyond the product, especially that you worked with so many famous products.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to tell you an inside story, and that actually kind of goes to the theme that Annar had mentioned before about if you're excluding 50% of the world, how can you make a product, you know, utilize and miss half the world? So my time at Fitbit, in particular, that one is a health device that enables you for more activity, connects you to the community, which Annar is showing right there. Majority of our customers and users are actually female. And why did we capitalize on that base? Back in 2012 to 2015, there was a huge movement actually in the US of being healthier as a cultural shift and mindset shift. And kind of going back to that, we had on our team female representation working on product design, engineering, program management, etc. And we were one of the first on our company compared to the marketplace to launch the product that includes women's health metrics. So everything from tracking your menstrual cycle, for example. And so when we put out the product, you know, it was almost understated. It was almost like a no-brainer. And it's based on the influence of the women that were working on this product. And also as a context, it was actually very unusual that I was working with so much women on the team for that specific product line. And so when we were put out in the market, a lot of people a lot of our female user base gravitated towards it compared to all these other products that were out in the market. And so even some of the big players, the traditional players, actually had to learn to catch up. And so that was not necessarily like an intentional oversight, but you can see the fruitful outcome and the impact of just, you know, it was non-negotiable for Fitbit. Like, we had to put that in. It just made sense compared to, again, what could happen to, product reception, your product reviews, and also, affecting impact on your bottom line for a company without including that metric for your majority of your user base. So that's an example. And then really quickly, the tie-in, the impact of the work. So a lot of times I do feel like, hey, I'm just working on this product. Let me get this engineering requirement in. Let me get this on track, on schedule, and launched to our customers. But really, when I step back and look at it, like, working on Apple iPhones, that iPhone is enabled to connect you with loved ones or in an emergency response situation. And we talked about Fitbit a little bit. And now over at Square with the payment devices, we do have that still kind of financial focus to help small, medium business owners. And a lot of times, startups and also entrepreneurs, and especially female in led businesses, small businesses, to be enabled, right, so that they can, function as a business. But we do have a pillar where we're trying to enable and learn more and help our customers learn more about cryptocurrency and digital currencies to level up that skill set. And I'm also learning personally about that, going from hardware to crypto. And then lastly, these are all like front-end products. I worked on a back-end product, which is the data server side of Facebook. You don't even see this. And what it does is that it stores all the information. So for example, the TechGirls page, where you see all the postings and reminders, all the events and the sign up, and you can connect with the communities there. The data servers record and store information there, so whenever you want to click on the link, you can always pull up the information seamlessly, right, as a record. And I was working on that back-end product, and then it's quite powerful. Again, like if we didn't have that, you wouldn't have any of this information that you can refer to, right, many years later.
Thank you so much, Sandra. We have 10 minutes, so I have 2 more questions. First to Raj, how did your perspective change from someone who works in tech before you had your daughters and after you had your daughters? Was there a perspective shift? Did you have any blind spots that were uncovered now?
Yeah, I would say it definitely changed, in fact, created perspective, because until then, women were just other competitors for a job post, right? If there's one job, 6 people apply, let's say 2 of them happens to be female, they are just a competition. But after, and I think I would say somewhat after getting married, my wife is a wonderful woman and she's not in tech. And I was like, charity begins at home. What can I do to help you transition into tech? But I think after marriage, after having daughters, it definitely opened a lot of blind spots for me, which is why I started volunteering with communities like this. And what I've realized is it's good for the bottom line. Like Sunita and Annar were saying about the capitalist country, society, and how this is actually good. It's an equitable way to create products which are sustainable. It's actually net extremely positive for the country. If you look at what's going on right now in the Europe and world at large, a lot of these conflicts could be avoided if you had a little more cooler heads on the table. And imagine if we had women leadership across the aisle and across the domains, whether it's a politics, whether it's a whatnot. We don't have to worry about negotiation. And men are good at certain things, are not good at certain things. And I think having women in the right levels across the industries is just a must. So that's how my perspective is shaped now.
Thank you so much, Raj. And any quick advice for the men who are watching us so they can switch their perspective or think differently?
For men, I would, so just like I personally went through this, your competition, is it a mutually exclusive? So men, I would say, first of all, understand and agree that it's not mutually exclusive. In fact, you learn a lot from them. I'm a product of who I am in my career because of my early female manager. And she was a wonderful mentor. I have not been mentored by a male manager like that individual. Now, I'm ashamed to say that because maybe the mentorship I'm providing is coming short somewhere, and which is where I'm very conscious of what kind of mentorship I provide to my reports. So that's what I would say to men, that if you have never had a female manager, seek one out. See how they train others, how they coach others. And I would say they're not a competition. If anything, this is what we need in a society, Not because I have daughters, right? Even if I had only 2 sons, I would still say women is what we need equally across every, and it's basics. It's nothing special. I think Warren Buffett said it very nicely that women have started entering into the workplace since 1960. So we are catching up, but if we can accelerate the catch up, that would be wonderful. And once it's done, the world would be more peaceful, beautiful, wonderful.
Thank you so much, Raj. Yeah.
Sorry, just one real quick thing. I've had a lot of great mentors who are men, and the thing that they did that was the best for me was they sponsored me and gave me opportunities. So do that.
Thank you so much. Sunita, I have one more question for you, and I think that will be our finale. And feel free to anyone who want to add to that afterwards. You mentioned, and so many of you, intersections a lot. And I think this is the new world of you cannot be in one domain with closed perspective. You need to have a little knowledge of everything. What advice would you give tech girls who are studying in university and are sticking to one major or are trying to go into one field? How can they broaden their perspective or mix one or more domains so they can have, and how can that affect their careers?
Yeah, great question, Tema. And actually, I think my answer would be an extension of what Annar and Sandra have said, with regards to there is technology. And from my experiences, usually the technology works, but there are other externalities that will make that technology more successful or creating more impact. And so, for example, in my own experience, right, because I've been involved more with what I call deep tech, so more like industrial IoT, 3D printing, solar and battery. So these kind of deep tech, usually the technology works, but it needs two things. In the beginning, usually it needs some kind of policy. It needs incentives. It needs comprehensive kind of incentives to push it to cross the chasm from early adopters to early majority. And then after that, it also needs new business models, usually, in order, again, to push more adoption. So for instance, one of the companies I'm at the board of, Sunrun, so they are the largest consumer solar today in the United States. However, the innovation was actually not in the solar technology because it was already there. But they were innovating in the new business model. They were offering solar as a service, so solar and battery as a service, because they knew for many people, they may not be able to afford solar at their homes. But if you do it as a service, they pay like a monthly fee, and then more people adopt it. Then all of a sudden this technology that's already there becomes more adopted, and then it creates, it's good for everyone, right? It's good for the environment, it's good for everyone. So my point is, I think this notion about in the beginning of your career, maybe yes, you're focusing on the technology because you do have to make it work. But eventually, I think as you go through your career, you'll find out in a lot of cases, the technology works, but in order to make it more impactful, usually there is this combination of policy going on and creating new business models that will increase more adoption.
Thank you so much, and I totally agree. I'm studying personally international relations and computer science, and I'm really interested in the policy and safety functionality balance. So I can relate a lot to what have you said and what you have all said. I personally, this was one of the pivoting panels that I've watched, and I'm honored that I'm moderating that. I'd like to thank you so much for your insights, and I'm sure that the Tech Girls will thank you as well. Amazing that we finished also on time. So Teresa, I hope you're happy with us. And thank you so much. I really hope I meet you in person one day.
Thank you so much, Tama.
So much.
Thank you all so much. Before you go, we would love if we could grab a quick picture of everyone. So if you want to go ahead and give us a big smile, I'll give you a countdown and we'll take the picture in 3, 2, 1. Oh, I'm just going to take the chat out. All right, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Thank you so much to our wonderful panelists and our amazing moderator. I think this was an excellent session. We grabbed a lot of quotes and tweeted those out, so feel free to share those with your followers. And I'm going to write some of those down and try to keep them in mind personally. So we'll share those out with our tech girls as well. We have a fun session for those tech girls called Silly Saturday, which is coming up next. So any tech girls who are joining now, we hope to see you at Silly Saturday. Otherwise, everyone else, have a wonderful weekend. And to our panelists, thank you for joining us bright and early on a Saturday morning. We really appreciate it. Thank you,
We
everyone.
wish it was longer, but we can go on for hours and days on this topic.
It's true. Yeah.
We need to
Thank
have
you.
we need to have coffee once we're in the same place. I think that would be the best coffee gathering ever.
We actually finished early. My clock is 8:58, so we finished 2 minutes early.
Nice.
Impressive.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone,
Amazing.
have a good
Keep in
weekend.
touch.
Yes,
Take care,
please.
everyone.
And help the mission forward. Yes.
Yes.
Totally.
Take
Thank you.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.